Been a while. My sister passed away, so I've taken some time off. If anyone's interested in how you kind of go through these types of things from an unconditional happiness point of view, feel free to check out my community. It's in there, and I might make more videos on this in the future. But right now, what I want to share about is what the ego actually is and how that works. Most people don't understand the ego, and that's because of the kind of modern idea of what the ego is. We have different kind of languages for it. So the ego that's referred to in the spiritual traditions is the ego that I'm about to share with you right now. And that is primarily the belief that what you are is temporary, limited, and finite, mixed then with a layer of thought, feeling, and action. So it starts as a belief, right? That's why babies don't have egos, right? Because there's no belief in separation that is actually active. The belief in separation in an infant isn't active because there is no belief, there's no thought, you see? So the belief in separation is created by essentially identifying patterns in the world through perception. These patterns are created by essentially perceiving, pure perception, pure consciousness, which shapes itself into the world, and we start to see patterns and behaviors. We start to distinguish our mother from our father, and our body from our toys, and our body from our cot, and all the things in our environment, and then we start copying and mimicking the behaviors in our environment. So basically, when people behave like a separate self, we adopt those behaviors, and then we start to cut ourselves out of the world. So it's like we're one formless, seamless experience. Think of what experience means. Experience means like when you're watching a movie, you're having an experience, and the experience of the movie, you're neither one or separate from it. You see, there's just complete coherence. There's no separation between you and experience when you're watching a movie. And so experience, period, like experience with a capital E, is what babies are having, pure experience, and they begin to cut themselves out into a particular shape. And that shape is the body. And they start to say, I am in here and the world is out there. And I'm separate from my toys, my cot, my thoughts, my feelings. These are my thoughts and feelings. These aren't your thoughts and feelings. So this must be me. And we start to, for an infant, there's only the I. There is just pure I-ness, but there's no almost like metacognitive understanding of that I. So basically, I don't know I'm I, but there's pure I. And then what we start doing is we start to say, I am this and not that, this and not that, this and not that. We cut ourselves out. And then this is what creates the ego. The ego is basically the actual I that does exist, that is real, that is the true self or the no self, depending which tradition you're from. And accompanied with thinking that that self is simply limited. That's it. So the I that we have in our sense of when we have an ego and we talk about ourself, it is the actual self, but we are just clothing it with separation. So the sense of I, the pure I am sense, is actually the real sense. It's like the light in a light bulb is actually light. It's not fake light. It's actually light. But if you believe the light bulb is the source of the light, then that is what the ego is to ourselves. So the light of consciousness is legitimately infinite consciousness. And if we believe that that is created by the body and the mind, that's what creates the ego, because what then happens is that there's accompanied with that belief is a way of interacting with the world, a function of interaction. And that function of interaction is simply thoughts based on that belief, which create feelings based on that belief, which create actions based on that belief. And the thought and feelings, they also can be considered as desires, you see? So the ego is a function and not an entity. So there's no entity that the ego is. The ego, like basically, you're in essence, you are completely free. And then there's just one belief that just makes you suffer. When someone says that you're already free, this is what they mean. Your actual normal day-to-day experience is already freedom. The difference is that with someone in ignorance, there is one belief that influences the majority of their day. That's it. So basically, one belief is influencing like 90% of most people's days. The other 10% is like the moments where that belief isn't active, which usually the belief becomes inactive after the retrieval of a desire. So once we get something or receive something, or something happens that essentially it removes resistance and removes seeking. So, and if like we wake up, we're in resistance, and the first little touch point of the day is like a coffee, and if I don't get that coffee, I will suffer. So we create a condition on our happiness that says, I wake up, my baseline is suffering. When I get to the coffee, then I will be happy. And then because we've literally just created that condition, the happiness will appear to be conditional in that way. So we get to the coffee and then, now I'm not miserable. Now I cannot be anything, meaning there's no seeking, no desire, which is freedom. That's the natural condition, is just desireless freedom. When I say desireless in the sense that we don't have desires in direction of trying to find happiness. There are desires, but not in the direction of suffering. So we're just relieved of that. So the belief in separation is all the ego is. A belief in separation that needs to then therefore fulfill itself. That's how it acts into the world. So your current state is complete freedom, mixed with one belief that the world is temporary, limited, and finite, and I am a temporary, limited, and finite object existing in it. And when I die, the body dies, and when the body dies, I die, and vice versa. That belief then creates it to appear as though I am literally, fundamentally, all I am is this body-mind. And if we believe that's true, that's what creates suffering. In the same way that it's like believing that if we turn on a light, it's like believing that the light, like the light bulb, is the source of light. Period. Like light in general. It's like that's the same belief. It's like believing that the body mind is the source of consciousness. Period. The body can somehow create it, like somehow a light. A light does not create electricity. You see, a light bulb does not create light. You see, it's simply a modal for it. And so when we have this belief, that's when we suffer. So the separate self and the ego, they're the same thing. And all they mean is that part of our experience where we think, feel, or act in accordance to the belief in being temporary, limited, and finite. Now you'll notice now that I've said this, lots of moments where you're not operating on that belief. You're still doing things, like it appears as though you're touching a separate world, doing separate things, but the belief isn't actually active. And you don't usually notice this. We don't usually notice it because that's what we call the flow state, or that's what we call being happy, or that's what we call like anything that we actually love. And because we spend so long seeking for those moments, we're not even thinking about what's going on in the moments where we're happy or at peace. We're not like, there's no like, we're just purely experiencing and we don't realize it. So true freedom is basically when we realize happiness is the nature of the mind. Basically, happiness, the basic, fundamental, out-of-the-box iPhone, this is the standard operating system for the mind, is happiness itself. Mind is made of pure consciousness, and pure consciousness is completely natural. We say natural in the sense of like, it is like where nature arises, and the natural condition of nature is peace. Is complete coherence, and that is the nature of the mind. So when we see the world, we look at nature, we're like seeing a physical representation. It's almost like metaphorical of what our true nature is like, pure being. So when pure being manifests into a world of duality, it's kind of like in the same way we create metaphors. If we want to like express art, right? Let's just say I'm feeling happy, so I'll draw a happy painting. The happy painting, my happiness doesn't look like the happy painting. But the painting is a representation of what I associate happiness with. Well, God, truth, reality is the same. When we look at the world, nature is just like a metaphorical, poetic expression of what naturalness is. And we experience the natural expression of God, basically, God's natural habitat, literally. So the universe is God's natural habitat. It's what God looks like if it was to express itself naturally, right? Like if you express yourself naturally, maybe you make music, maybe you sing, maybe you do these. Well, reality is like that. It's expressing everything, but through us and through nature. You see, it's all happening. It's all one coherent unit. So the separate self is a very temporary, fleeting thing. And once the belief in separation is removed by simply seeing there is no separation, that's when the separate self actually starts to disappear. And this is very scary for a lot of people, because that is what we call an ego death. So an ego death is basically when what we think we are, what we think we're made of, we no longer think we're made of that. So if I thought I was like this pen, you see, if I thought I was this pen, then I would be so scared to run out of ink. You see, I would fear it, because without my ink, what am I? I'm an inkless pen. I'm nothing, you see? So if I identified with being this pen, I would be like, oh, I'm getting close to running out of ink, and I would seek for more ink, and I would, you know what I mean? Like I would fear losing that. So in the same way, if we think we're the body, and then we realize just to come back actually to this metaphor, because I didn't finish it. So if I was the pen, and then someone told me, by the way, you're not really a pen, you're actually the person using the pen, then I would start freaking out, because I'd be like, wait, but I thought all this time I was the pen. Am I actually not the pen anymore? What if I'm not the pen? If I'm not the pen, then my identity dies. It disappears. My identity, the thing I think I am, disappears. But you won't disappear. This is what you don't know when you're in ignorance. In ignorance, you think if your identity dies, you die. Or if you think what you think you are is not really what you think you die. This is why we have this fear, anxiety around awakening and around fear of death. But really, you're not going to have any of that experience whatsoever. So the separate self will try to protect itself. This is why we need some type of guide on this path, because if you're very smart, which if you're watching this video 10 minutes in or however long we're in right now, and you're still watching and engaged, you are already smarter than like 90% of the people on earth, because most people don't have the attention span to even watch more than 3 minutes, let alone a 10-minute video. So you're going to be very intelligent, and you're going to try and outsmart yourself, because you're not really sure which one you are. You could be infinite, you could be finite, you could be the separate self, you could not be. And if you're watching this video, you also do to some degree believe you are partially could be the body and the mind. That's why you're still here right now, having this experience of this back and forth. So it's a good thing to admit that there is a part of me that still kind of thinks that I'm limited. That's perfectly fine, because if we can come to that conclusion that we do not know, we're in the best place possible for an open, genuine exploration, which is based on interest and curiosity. So if this is your type of thing, I have a mastermind group. The link is in the description. If you'd like to join, I would love to see you there. This is where I pour my heart and soul, also into YouTube, but the real nitty-gritty and all the real bits that you really need to see, they're all going to be in the mastermind group, and I'd love to see you there. So have an amazing day, guys. Take care. Bye.